John, do you think this is a good way to develop politics in any country?
I do think that you have to say that nobody is above the law. And if Donald Trump has broken the law, he shouldn't be able to say, because I'm a politician, because I was president, because I'm going to run for president again, the laws don't apply to me. You know, be you ever so high, the law has to be above you.
And that's absolutely right. But doesn't it stick in the craw when the prosecutor is an elected political opponent and make fair-minded people think this isn't justice, this is politics?
Well, it is the American settlement that they have directly elected prosecutors. That's the way they do it, and they've done it since for the last century at least, and probably beyond that. Yes, there's a political position. People run for them from political backgrounds. But this prosecutor, Alvin Bragg, looked at the file when he came in and set it to one side. He said, we can't proceed on this basis. So he has actually we took one step back away from this, that they inherited from his predecessor, looked at it again in some forensic detail. And the fact is that some of Trump associates have had to go to jail. It suggests, you know, either Donald Trump knew nothing about what was going on, being done on his behalf, or he knew. And if you are party to a crime, you can't just get away from it just because you're being prosecuted by a Democrat. If it was a Republican, would he just put his hands up and go, it's okay?
But, Alex, isn't it always the case that people say piously that they're leaving their politics at the door? But this is always nonsense, that people's politics runs through them, particularly when they're elected on a party ticket.
I'm afraid that's a criticism of the system, not of the man or of the case. I agree with John. I wouldn't elect our prosecutors, I wouldn't elect our judges, and I think there's much to criticise about a system that does that. But once you have it, that system still has to go through, evaluate evidence and bring cases where it's appropriate. Now, I haven't been at the bar for some time now, but I still remain with the firm view the process in this country is better than what we're seeing on show in the United States. But, you know, in the end, they've got to go through the process of evaluating a prosecution and bring it. And by the way, I'm far from sure I agree with Dermot's conclusion that this, you know, people want to see the end of this. I think this escalates Trump rather a lot. And there's plenty of people who will look at this, see how it dynamises the Trump base, see how it drives up support for him amongst Republicans. It definitely means
done for Ron DeSantis.
Exactly. It's definitely going to mean he dominates the field for the selection once again. I think he's odds on to get the nomination, no matter how good, whatever you think of it. And this, I think, probably helps that. So I'm actually more inclined to think this isn't some kind of conspiracy, because if you thought about it, you probably wouldn't. If you were planning it on a partisan basis, you wouldn't have done it
this way.
But US partisanship has become so extreme that Democrats can't believe that Republicans will behave in this way. That they think that if they prosecute Trump, that finally does him down, and this anti-establishment figure, this figure that the blob doesn't like, will be put to sleep.
I agree with that, but those are also all reasons that will energise and incentivise Trump supporters to rally behind him. I'm not encouraging that necessarily or criticising it. I'm simply saying all of this escalates Trump, raises his salience in the campaign, makes it more likely that he's Biden's opponent. And for me, in the end, this is the weakest of the charges that Trump faced. If you were planning something against Trump, you wouldn't have brought this one first.
But doesn't it further embitter the political system in the US? And couldn't the Republicans say, well, look, we could prosecute Hillary Clinton for her dodgy emails. Once Biden's out of office, we can prosecute him for his documents being in his garage in Delaware. That this just changes the whole tone of the debate if you're going for minor administrative charges.
Well, the US system has become more divided. It has become more partisan. There used to be a lot more working across the aisle. There used to be a lot more collaboration, cooperation. Biden comes from that generation, actually, of where a Democrat senator would work across the aisle to get legislation done the right way. You know, McCain did too. I think that time has gone, the 20th century cooperation. What you have to have is something has to change in the country. I've got no doubt about that. When Trump was 7 million votes behind in the general election, he wasn't close, but he was close in the Electoral College. That's partly what this is about. That's partly what one of the charges is about, which is that it was close enough that if he'd managed to change the vote in Georgia, then he would have been maybe president. And the bitterness of the fighting over the Electoral College, that is there too. But Trump represents something. Trump represents a strand in politics. And the generation after Biden, the Democrats, has to find a way to reach across and to heal. And
well, that's what Biden promised to do when he got elected, and he singularly failed to do it. He's been even more divisive than before.